was thinking, I wonder, would it even be worth to say it? And that's kind of sad in itself. But I think that what I would say would be short. It wouldn't be long-winded because people don't have the attention span for it, especially if they're on their phone. I think it would simply be start treating people better. Start treating people better. And it's not like you have to be friends with everybody, but you can start one day at a time treating somebody a little bit better, and it will grow.
Are you ready?
I am ready, man.
Okay, what's your name
Marcus Carter,
and how old are you?
27.
Okay. So, Marcus, who are you on a soul level?
On a soul level, like are we talking like spirit animal?
Sure.
Spirit.
Go
animal.
there.
Ooh, spirit animal. I mean, I guess by society standards, I would be a silverback gorilla. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. But no, but I guess I don't know. I would have to think of an animal that essentially has logic and care, love, demeanor. I don't really know. Animal. Maybe animal's a bad choice.
I was going to say, like, who are you?
Because animals are animals. 'Cause animals are creatures, and like
We're creatures.
They just want to like have sex and kill each other. So
Sounds like humans.
facts. So all right, my favorite animal, I guess my spirit animal would be a human since that's what I am. But on a real soul level, I would say I'm just a guy that likes to take pictures. Number one, cares for people, works a job that I'm overworked and underpaid, like most out here
Yeah.
in this world. No house in sight, so it's very nice to be sitting inside a house. One day maybe I'll have my own. Probably not in this area. And yeah, just try to live it one day at a time. Look at things for what it is instead of what it feels, and enjoy it. That's all you can really do. So that's pretty much what I'm doing.
Okay. What, I don't know, has contributed to making you this person? So, like, is there anything that's happening right now or anything that's happened, like, previously in your life that's had like, a really big impact on who you are today?
Oh, hope you have a lot of space in this phone. There's a lot. It's funny you said that, though. I actually just put this up into a Instagram post the other day about that pretty much everybody I've ever come in contact with one way or another has definitely had an impact into not only who I am, but kind of where I'm at in life. Big believer in karma and meeting people at certain times for certain reasons, even if it doesn't make any sense to you, even if they destroy you mentally, physically, steal stuff from you, whatever it may be. It is all for a reason. And that being said, I guess one big creditor that I could say to really who I am now would be all my ex-girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I mean, each of them have changed my outlook on life and of people, simply just because, you know, whether it be one of my ex-girlfriends who destroyed my credit debt, had to fight back out of that, and luckily my parents helped me with that, so shout out to them. Or, you know, the one that punched me in the face and I was have to call the cops on. That happens too. So, I mean, that definitely molded me. And another big one would probably be in college, where I was with a roommate that is probably a narcissistic psycho, to put it lightly. Just crazy. I mean, the stuff we went through, the stuff I've had to deal with, things to put up with, listen to people, watch people be destroyed, have to deal with all that. And then to go back and on top of that, have him going telling people, like, crazy ass things about how I don't deserve what I have, or that my parents are a bad influence on me because of their life habits that they have had with drugs and things of that nature in the past, and just things that were super far out of line, you know. And all these things kind of put together really build a skin of sorts, kind of like an armor, where you just kind of get used to life. And unfortunately, the more I've gone through it, the more I've learned that people kind of suck. It's kind of unfortunate though, because I do like people. I like people. I like to talk to people. I like to interact with people. So it is always hard when you have those people that you consider to be family at some sorts, and then they go and just kind of blow up your entire world at that point in time. It's kind of like meeting your favorite sports player or music artist, and then they're a complete asshole when you meet them. You're kind of tarnished from there on. And that's kind of really what has molded me. It hasn't really been the positive times, it's been more the negative times that have allowed me to be who I am. Besides that, I mean, also being a only child growing up. Sorry, I'm sure my lips don't get all white and dry like I've been eating powdered donuts. That you have to teach yourself a lot of stuff. I was adopted, so that made me very spoiled as a kid, which is, for most would think as being great, but then you realize as you get older, you're not going to be like that forever. So you have to make choices. You have to start learning how to interact with people and manage your money, manage your time, respecting others, because I don't have a big family, never have. It's me and my mom, my dad, and my grandma. That's all it's ever been. So when something goes on with them, it affects me greatly. And even as a kid growing up, I think I grew up very, very quickly. I mean, people were telling me that I was 26, 27 from the time I was probably like 15 or 16. I usually get along with people that are older than me. That's very typical for me. Most people my age, I don't get along with. They just don't see things the way that I see them. And that's probably another part to really who I am, is just always thinking, I guess what most would say, beyond my years is a term that I've heard, in terms of like wisdom and in terms of just my outlook on life. I just have developed a sense now where it's black and white, and it's what is happening, what needs to happen, and that's pretty much about it. I've learned that emotion's great. I mean, I think love is a very powerful thing. I mean, luckily I am engaged to somebody who's amazing, who will be here shortly in the next couple of months, which is amazing. But also, there's a lot of situations where if you let your emotions get the best of you, you're going to lose every time, because usually that leads to irrational thinking. You're going to either say or do something that you're going to regret later, and I've tried to minimize those as best as possible, because having to apologize for something even though you know you're in the right but it came out wrong, yeah, that just sucks. So just start really living it one day at a time, looking at it for what it is, every single situation, positive, negative, and always trying to find the positives as best I can, because living in a negative headspace is just not healthy. Not for me, not for anybody, but especially being an overthinker, anything negative or gray area it's detrimental. It doesn't help me. It hurts over and over and over again, and nobody else really cares at that point. So try to avoid those as best I can. That's pretty much what has gotten me to where I am now, which is sitting in front of this camera with you, which is awesome. So glad we're able to finally do this.
Seriously, I'm excited.
Yeah. So what you got for me? What are we going to talk about today? What do you want to know?
Everything. I'm going to give you 3 categories. Do you remember this part?
I do vaguely, but remind me so that I don't trip up and sound dumb.
Okay, so 3 categories, and I want you to tell me what means the most to you and what means the least to you, and you can mix and match the things within these categories as you need to.
All right.
So the first category is love, sex, relationships.
Okay.
The next category is society, culture, politics. And the third is spirituality and or religion, because those don't go hand in hand for everyone. Okay. So out of those things, what comes first in your life?
Probably love, sex, and relationships for sure.
Okay.
Definitely, I think my life has been based off of relationships, whether it be making them or unfortunately breaking them.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely been number one. I mean, I've always been a lover of sorts. My mom always said, at least. Definitely, in terms of my personal life, has always been somebody who's way more comfortable in a relationship than out of a relationship. So that's definitely been a big part of it. And I think it really shows in not just my actual relationship that I have, but even with my friends. I'm definitely one of those people that will give a shirt off my back and shoes off my feet and go to war for my friends before myself. I mean, that is a huge characteristic that I have, where you can say whatever you want about me, I can take it, but if you go and talk about my friends, I will lose it. That's 100%. That's who I am. So I mean, that's number one. And that all kind of also molds into the next one, which I would put would be society and culture. Society is a very interesting place these days, and you know, I've seen, yeah, right, exactly. And my thoughts are very out there with society, I guess, of sorts.
What are some of your thoughts?
One of them is I think America's weak.
Okay.
And the reason I say this, not in a sense of like, oh, we don't go to war or whatever. I don't care about any of that. The whole political correctness thing, in my opinion, has just become too much. You know, whether it's your cultural appropriation is a big one you hear about these days, and I guess we'll start there. Where I feel that a lot of these cultures, you know, whether it be somebody who's black, whether it be somebody who's Asian, whether it be somebody who's Hispanic, if anybody ever tries to appreciate those cultures by doing things like listening to rap music or going to a black barbershop or going to a Latin dance night, they're doing it because they want to learn the culture, they want to appreciate the culture, but then the people in that culture turn around and punch them in the face and say, you know, you're disrespecting my culture, you're trashing on my culture. Like, I remember this happened to me recently. I was making a dish because I've been to Germany a couple times, and I made my own rendition of currywurst.
What is that?
Which is a dish that I learned in Germany, something that I love. It's basically sausage with a curry ketchup of sorts with like onions, and they put it with french fries. I made my own rendition of it because I'm not from Germany. I don't have the means and resources. And somebody had reached out to me and they were just like, you're insulting Germany, this, that, and another. And I was like, I'm not insulting Germany. I'm giving credit to Germany and their food. So I didn't understand it. I apologized to him, you know, whatever. I didn't want to offend him or anything. He still ate the food. It still tasted great. And I'd made it for German friends and they had no problems with it. So, you know, things of that nature I just don't understand. The LGBTQ community is another one, and I know I'm walking in fire right now, but we'll do it. Is another one where, I mean, I have multiple friends who are in those communities. I have 2 coworkers who are in those communities, and there's nothing against them, but it's the same point that I was making. Again, probably the strongest one you hear about is black culture. These two I have the same opinion on, which it's, you have to educate people for them to be able to understand what you're talking about, versus when they try, you turn and snap on them like they're supposed to know overnight. And I just feel like it's gotten to that point where if somebody says the words identify, you don't even know what to say to them anymore because you're so worried about offending them versus asking a question like you're supposed to know. Like, you can't go and say, oh, well, what do you identify as? Or, God forbid, you say the wrong term to identify who they are, and they get super pissed instead of saying, no, like, that's actually not correct. This is how I would like to be addressed. Some people will. You know, I don't want to generalize all people in this, but I feel like it's kind of become society norm to just get really pissed at people. And it just sucks. I think it's too much. I mean, it's happening all the way down to our kids. I mean, I used to coach kids before working my desk job, and I remember I had a dad come up to me and he snapped on me because his kid was the captain of the cupcakes. 1, his kid chose the team name. 2, it was the World Cup soccer tournament we were doing. And 3, the kid just liked cupcakes. But he came in and cursed me up and down about how his kid's not a cupcake, his kid's not weak, his kid's not a wimp. And I'm just like, dude, get over yourself. This kid is 7.
Did you tell him he chose the name?
Yeah.
And that he just likes cupcakes?
Yep.
And what did...
He didn't say anything. He just got an attitude, grabbed his kid and left. That was about it.
And he was just like, I don't care.
No, he was, I don't care. He blamed me. My boss had to get involved because he was getting all hostile, and I was just like, all right, man, it's cool. But I mean, that all kind of ties back into what I was saying before. It's like, I've just realized at this point, I'm just like, I just can't get all tied up in emotions with this dude. There's no point. He's going to be upset regardless.
Yeah.
There's nothing I'm going to say or do. He's already pissed, and that's what it's going to be. And that kind of ties into the next big thing that I know I at least run into as a black photographer, which I'm sure you kind of may already know where I'm going with this one, is I grew up in Northern Virginia. Still live in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
I have very limited in terms of, who really wants to shoot the kind of content that I do. I don't do standard flowers and butterflies and high fashion stuff. I do stuff that feels. I do stuff that's deep. And usually the people that contact me for this content are young white girls. It's what it is. I don't look at color. Never have.
Mm-hmm.
It's art to me. I don't care whether you're purple, green, orange, red, blue. Doesn't matter. If you want to come and create some cool content, I'm about it. But the amount of times that I've been attacked for not shooting enough black people, or not shooting enough this people, or not shooting enough that people, I just got to a point where I was just like, I don't care. I mean, it got to a point where on one of my Instagram lives, it got so bad, it turned into a race war on my live feed. And I don't want to put anybody on blast as to what happened, but said individuals went in there and basically were saying that, as a black man, the only thing you really should be doing is marrying black women.
Is your fiance white?
My fiance is white. She is from France. And the guy who I was in there with was from West Africa, married to an American white woman. So both of us are sitting there like, is this guy serious right now? Like, is that what's happening? And, it's just shown me that this country, society, the politics, the relationship, everything about it, people are broken, period. That's just how I feel. That's how I see it. And it's just ridiculous. I don't see the point to it. I don't know why people do the things that they do. I just don't get it, because people are always going to be pissed. And that's kind of the point that I really am going into with this, is that I learned that this is my art form, right? I'm going to express it however I feel fit. And if one group of people is pissed off, somebody else probably isn't. And if I go the other way and make them happy, the other group gets pissed off. So it's a lose-lose situation. So I said, screw both of y'all. I don't care. I'm going to keep doing me. And the craziest part is both of these groups will reach out to me and say how much they love the work. But yet on the backhand, you have another comment to make about it. So it's like, which one is it? Do you love the work, or are you just looking to pick a fight? Like, what's the point here? I've never understood it. So that's why I just continually just go one day at a time. And if you treat me right, I'll treat you right and then some. I mean, that's just how I've always operated. That's why my friend circle is very small. But out of those friends, I could call any of them if something were to go wrong, and I would get the same response, and they know they get the same thing out of me. Sometimes they get so much out of me they don't call. I mean, I've actually had friends that have kind of removed themselves because I can be a little too honest for them, I think, sometimes. Where I do look at it for what it is and don't really have a regard for what it feels. But at the end of the day, I don't really care how it feels, because it's not going to change what's happening. I can be upset at something and sit there and moat and pout and be depressed about it, but is it going to change anything? Absolutely not. I mean, you saw my car outside. I destroyed my car by myself. Completely my fault. I was leaving. I was rushing. I wasn't thinking. Smacked my car into a pole in the garage. Most people would be super pissed, super upset. I literally parked it, got out, called my friend, said, hey, can you help me find these parts? Went upstairs and started editing photos. Why? Because there's no point. What is me sitting there for 2 weeks pissed off going to do? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And another prime example a lot of people know is I had a camera stolen from me not long ago. And people heard about that, and there is an update that I will disclose here that nobody's really heard live, so this will be the first time they hear it. But essentially, I met somebody, sat down 30 minutes, talked to him, shook his hand, talked about photography. Everything you would think was perfectly fine. Fraudulent credit card. Camera's gone. Money had to be refunded. That was it. In the wind. And, it hurts, of course. I mean, when you lose $3,000 worth of camera gear that you've worked very hard for, it sucks. And will still always suck because it happened. Luckily, the new development is they did find the people and arrested them.
Awesome.
Found that the guy had federal warrants.
For doing that to other people.
Multiple cities, multiple places.
Wow.
The girl had no criminal history and just was roped into it. She made a mistake. It was somebody she thought she cared about that didn't have her interest in mind. And she got roped into now probably something that's going to affect the rest of her life. And, it's just one of those things that you just got to shake it off. You just have to keep moving forward, because if it's not this bad time, it's going to be another bad time. And if you sat there and dwelled over everything negative that ever happened to you, you would never grow and never get anywhere. ever. You just sit there stagnant, pissed off all the time. And some people do. I mean, that's how drug habits happen. That's how alcoholics are created. Is because they can't let that kind of stuff go. Instead, they try to bury it in other means instead of just facing the reality of what the situation is and moving past it. That's all I've ever done. So those are probably the three topics, because that's love, sex, relationships, society, culture, religion, and politics. That was the third one. So my religious views are interesting. I grew up Methodist. You know, I've been to Catholic churches. I've been to Methodist churches, Baptist churches, Christian of sorts, I guess you would say. And after I took a Western civilization class in college, that actually all changed. Because by this point, I was already the kind of person that was living my life based on what I saw versus what I felt. I wasn't just taking what people said and running with it like it was the gospel, no pun intended. But then I realized that I can't go to church anymore because church is intended to worship this one God, and I didn't believe that there was only one. So it had nothing to do with the fact that I didn't believe in some sort of a higher power. I mean, my middle name is Anthony. I'm named after a saint. But I didn't think it was right for me to be there. I thought it was disrespectful to his house. I mean, it's God's house, and if I don't only believe in you and it's a monotheistic religion where there's not supposed to be more than one, that's an insult. So I stopped going. So that's really my religious view. So I just kind of believe that there is some sort of something out there, firm believer in karma. I mean, I've had times where I should have died. I've almost been hit by cars, or I've almost fell off ledges, and things that obviously something was controlling the situation. Whether it's fate, whether it was karma, whatever it may be, I didn't have power over it because it probably should have happened differently, you would have thought, but it didn't. And I'm still here. So whatever it may be, I'm appreciative of it. And politics, oh man. So my political views are kind of similar. My grandma would disagree with me. That's why we don't talk about politics, because she's hardcore Democrat. I mean, but my grandma's also an 83-year-old African-American woman who grew up in Richmond, in Georgia, areas of high segregation, and went through all of those trials and tribulations that I never went through. So all of her points are justified, and I will never argue against her for them. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them. I mean, for me, it's, I look at it, does it make sense? If it makes sense, I'll vote for it. I don't care what color it is, I don't care what party it is. It all comes down to, is what you're saying makes sense? In my opinion, both parties are just as bad. I think it's all pretty much a scam. It's a big ass gang fight for rich people, is what I think Congress is. It's no different than Blood versus Crips. The only difference is one takes place in the hood and one takes place in Capitol Hill. But it's two sides identifying underneath two different colors, trying to fight their own battle to win some sort of award that they continually make up. So, you know, Trump, let's talk about it. He, my opinion, he sucks. But again, like I said, I'm looking at it for what it is. I've made money since Trump's been in office. I'm a government contractor. He's put extra money in my pocket. I can't say that's a bad thing. Everybody needs money. Do I agree with 98, 99% of the things he says and or does? Not at all. Has he done everything wrong? No, I can't say that. He hasn't done everything wrong. He's done most of everything wrong, but not everything. And, you know, that's just how I feel about politics. Is there's been Republicans that I thought would be very good, and there's been Democrats that I thought would be very good, simply because what you're saying makes sense. People love Bernie Sanders. He's great, cool guy. What he says makes no sense because the country's not built for what he wants to do. And do I think that the country's ready for a female president? No, unfortunately. Is it what we need? 100%. But I just don't think the country's ready for it. I think we've seen that. We saw what happened when they went against the norm and Obama was president. And I mean, even black people were mad at Obama for things that he did. And in my opinion, justifiably so. There are things he said he was going to do, he didn't do. Sorry, that's what it was. And again, that's why I don't take it for all the emotions and all of the he said, she said, and well, you should do this because of that. No. If he makes sense, I'll vote for it. If not, I won't. And that's how I've always seen it. And that won't change, and it's got me this far. I pretty much take care of the people who are in my circle, and that's about it. Because at the end of the day, regardless of who's in office, regardless of what color they are, what race they are, what sex they are, the people in my circle, if shit hits the fan, those are the people that we're going to have to go and fight with. Not the people on Capitol Hill, not the people in the schools. It'll be the people that I call on the phone that say, hey man, my car broke down, can you come help me? Those are the people that if zombies rise or aliens come down, that's who you're going to hit up. That's who you're going to call. So that's the people I care about most. Friends and family come first, and everything else, I'll take it as it comes. So pretty much my philosophy on those three things.
Cool. So I'm going to get you to draw. So I want you to pick colors that represent you as a person and your life and the things that make you happy.
Nice.
And things that make you sad. Whatever colors speak to you.
Purple's
and then
first.
I want you to tell everyone like why you pick the colors that you pick.
Let's see. How deep do we want to go with this one?
Yeah, you can pick as many colors as you want.
Let's see. We'll go purple. Get some doubling the meanings in some of these colors here. Mix it up. We'll go with these. Yeah, we'll go with those. I like those.
What colors did you pick?
All right. There wasn't a white, so I went with light gray. Purple, my favorite color. I've always loved purple. People who have seen a lot of my videos, behind the scenes videos, I actually found out most of my behind the scenes videos have the same purple shirt in it, which is why today I made sure I didn't wear that shirt because I did think about it, but I put it back. Because I love purple. I mean, it's the color of royalty. It's not really why I like it. I just always like the color purple. It's just cool. So, black. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to go somewhere crazy with this. No, I'm not doing that. It's just, for me, black is the color of darkness, right? And dark times and negative times. And people that have seen my photography, black resonates very heavy in my photography. And the reasons behind my photography, I focus on moody type content where you feel something. And usually the color black is what really will emphasize that. Things like contrast, things like shadows. It is that color that brings things out and really makes you feel them and adds drama to photos and scenes. And you know, it's always different. If you're walking down a path in a park during the day and it's lighttime, you're gonna think nothing of it. If you're walking at night where it's mostly dark, you're gonna think completely different. So black to me is actually a very powerful color in a lot of different ways. And yeah, I could go on this whole black empowerment rant thing, but yeah, I'm not gonna do that because it's just not really me. So for me, black is really important for mostly photography. And I also think that there is a beauty in darkness. That's another part of my photography that comes in black. Like, I do think there is a light within the dark that does take a lot to find. You know, it's not something that a lot of people even really think about. But I do think that even the darkest times can have some odd type of a beauty to them that most people don't see. And that's what I try to do with my photography. I try to take pictures that people feel. You know, I don't want people saying, oh, that's a nice photo. I want people to say, I'm not sure I could even like that photo because it hits me a certain way. That's what I want. I mean, I've taken pictures where even the model said they can't post them because they were just too deep. They weren't what she was expecting them to do. And I think we struck some sort of a couple of nerves. But as me and what I was trying to do, I was pretty excited. And I know it sounds kind of sick and twisted, but it is what it is. It was the goal. I mean, the goal was to really accentuate a dark concept, and it came out vividly. So, in my opinion, it was a success. And to contrast that one, I picked light gray. I would have picked white, but there wasn't really a white in there, so I went as close.
White markers.
Which is gray, which actually, gray is probably better. They do have a white marker, but it's like, for like that weird, like you have to find it later with the glow light thing. So in this case, no. But actually, this is probably better gray. It's not quite white. It would be the full contrast to the darkness, which is the light in life, where there is always, in my opinion, a positive to find, which is why I would have picked white. So I'll kind of touch on that, and then I'll get to actual gray. But there's always a silver lining, in my opinion. You just have to look for it, and sometimes you have to look harder than other times. It's very, very hard for people to have something negative happen to them and then turn around and say, okay, why did this happen? What am I supposed to take away from this? And it took me years to develop this. It's not something that came overnight. I mean, being the nice guy did make you finish last a lot. I mean, that's true. You know, people take advantage of you. People are going to take you for granted. People are going to use you. That is a real thing. But you also need to break out of that, because I've learned you have to have a backbone. And I'm not saying you have to be an asshole to everybody, because nobody wants that. But you have to at least have that gear where if something does require you to kind of stand up and fluff your feathers of sorts, you can do that and not be scared of it. And I'm a person that I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I think about people's feelings, again, before my own. In everything that I do, the way that I approach clients for photography, the way that I interact with my friends and family, everything has to pretty much do with how they feel about the situation before me. Because, again, I know how to just put it into a box, compartmentalize it, and throw it away. And that's why gray, to lead into it, is, in my opinion, for people, probably the most powerful color out of all of them, which technically I guess people say this isn't fully a color because it's a mix of different colors, I guess, or I'm not a color theorist, I don't really know. But I do know about gray areas. And it's true in thoughts, it's true in relationships, it's true in just about everything. It is the area that will determine the kind of life that you're going to have. You know, the good times, the white times, the positive times, everybody loves those. Everybody loves when it's positive. The dark times will help you really determine who's actually going to be there for you. It'll determine how strong you really are and can you get back up, and some people can, some people can't. It's the gray area that is the most scary. It's the ones where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know whether it's going to turn out positive or turn out negative. For instance, any single choice you make in life, it's in the gray area. Anybody you talk to, you know, when you put your neck out there for somebody for a job interview, you're in the gray area. When you reach out to somebody and lend them money, you're in a gray area. When you go to try to sell a camera on Facebook Marketplace, you're in a gray area. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's funny because I sold 2 cameras on Facebook Marketplace. One of them sold perfectly fine. The girl was super happy. The other one got stolen, and now I have to go to court for it. So again, each time you're in a gray area. So I think if I can give a piece of advice to people based on these colors, it would be work on your gray areas, because those are the ones that are really going to determine how happy or how sad you're going to be day in and day out. Confusion is what destroys relationships. Confusion is what messes you up at work. You know, not knowing what you're supposed to do, just getting yelled at, or not knowing how somebody feels about a situation. That's how all these bad things happen. Once you remove as much of those gray areas and get it into that, is it good, is it bad, is it positive, is it negative, the black and white areas, it just becomes effortless to me. Like, interacting with people, to me, is probably one of the easiest things to do. You just figure out, okay, if I say this, they're going to get pissed. If I say this, they're going to be happy. And if they're in this area and they're confused, okay, how can we clear that up? And then move on. That's just about it. And then I put some more color into it. I put red. Red's a powerful color. I've always liked red.
That's like a special red, though.
It's
not like a normal.
No, it's like a crimson. It's a crimson red because you know don't want to be standard red. Standard, you know, we're not basic out here. Well, I do like pumpkin spice. I will admit this openly on camera, and I am not ashamed of this. I'm born in September. Y'all leave me alone. But red is kind of ties in with the other ones altogether, minus purple. That was just a personal favorite. But it, to me, signifies the wounds that you take in life. I mean, like the blood, the cuts, the bruises, the battles. I mean, life is a battle. You know, every day in and day out, you're going to end up in some sort of battle, whether it be with somebody else, whether it be inside yourself. You're taking a shot, and you have to be able to get back up. I mean, that is number one thing that I have learned over all these other areas, going through the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, is when you fall, not if you fall, when you fall, you have to be able to figure out how to get back up. And you're not going to get anywhere if you're not willing to fail, because you're going to fail. You can't avoid it. One way or another, something you do, you will fail. And either you give up and you bleed out, so covered in red, or you get back up, you wipe yourself off, and you figure out how to not do that again. If you make a mistake, that's fine. Just don't make it again. And just keep it moving. So that's kind of why I brought all these colors together, because I think they all kind of tie into my day-to-day thought process in how I approach life and how I approach people and how I approach situations, and just really have gotten me to be almost 28. So that's the one I got.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the rest of the time, I want you to draw whatever you want.
Oh, I'm not an artist.
I mean, most of these people aren't, except for, Kim is.
Yeah, well, put me on the other side of Kim.
So,
It's made me feel self-conscious about myself. I don't even know what to draw.
you can draw whatever you want, and you don't have to finish. Nobody ever
So
does.
I'm a photographer, not a painter, because this blank canvas gives me anxiety.
You could write words if you want to. You don't have to literally just put something on the paper, and it doesn't matter what it is.
All right, I'm just gonna leave this here and then just start moving it around, and we'll see where we get to.
Okay. So the first question I'm gonna ask you is, what makes you the most upset? Like, what really pisses you off?
Right now, I'd probably say laziness.
In yourself or in other people?
Both.
Okay.
I get it. Like, if you don't know how to do something, that's fine. No one's expecting everybody to be a genius. But you have a choice. You can either kind of tie into what I was just saying. You can keel over and just say, I don't know what I'm doing, and give up. Or you can get up and you can go figure it out. And, I've just learned there's a difference between laziness and not knowing. Not knowing is you really don't know when you're asking a question because you have no idea. If somebody came in and asked me about astrophysics, I'd be like, I don't know anything about that. I'd have to go look it up and get back to you. If somebody came and asked me about how to edit a photo, I could tell them about that because I wasn't lazy and I spent time developing it. I spent money developing it. And a lot of people, I found that's a big problem with everybody that wants to chase their dreams, is it's not that they can't do it. They're just being lazy. I mean, the amount of people, and I appreciate all my supporters, but that will sit there and say, oh, bro, you're killing it. You're doing so great. I look at them and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing great. I'm still working a desk job. I'm not supporting myself. I'm not doing it solely off of this, so that in my head is killing it. You're saying I'm killing it because I'm doing what you're not doing, not because you can't, but because you're being lazy. I mean, that's just what it is. My friend called me the other day, and he was like, how do I set up my cable box? And I almost cursed him out. I'm like, really? I said, did you read the instructions? And he said, no. I was like, dude, you haven't read the instructions? Get off my phone. So laziness really makes me mad. And another thing, it's just treating, I'll dive deeper into a personal note here because we've been kind of surface level. The mistreating of women is a huge trigger factor for me. I don't know exactly why. It's always been that way. My mom has told me that it has come from, I had a biological sister, and according to my mom, was killed by my biological father on some stupid domestic dispute, from what I hear. I don't know much about it. I was really young when she told me. That might be it. I don't really know. But I do know that it is a massive trigger point for me. I can't even see guys and girls messing around, pushing each other without it triggering me. I just want to see it. So I don't know where it comes from exactly, but I do know that it definitely pisses me off to a point that I can't control. And, I've learned that about myself, is I have a very high degree of patience when it comes to people. But if you push past that, I can be a real asshole. And to the point where I have learned to remove myself from these situations, because if I don't, I will say things that will hurt people's feelings. I do know this about myself. My mom knows this. My fiance knows this. I've warned people I care about this, that like, if I stop talking, leave me alone and let me do me. I'll get out of it. And most of the times when people don't, it doesn't end well. So that's probably my number one trigger point. It's another thing that kind of leads into my photography, which is I don't do pictures that like degrade women of sorts. Like I don't do boudoir photography. I don't do bikini photography because in my opinion you don't need sex to sell good art. I don't see the point to it. I never have. Have I done a bikini shoot? One time. Have I done a boudoir shoot? Not at all. Could I do them? Sure. Could I be very successful doing them? I'm sure I could, because I do have a lot of confidence in my talent and my ability to relate to somebody in a way that would make it very unique.
Do you feel like all nude photography though is sexual? Because I feel like I've seen some stuff that's nude, but you're not thinking about like sex when you look at it. Like it's still art.
Yes,
in a way.
I'm glad you asked that. I was going to segue into that, so you're right on topic here. You're with me. I like that. So no, not all photography is sexual, right? There is a thing called artistic nude, right? I've seen many people who have done it, but I've said this to multiple people, so me saying this now is going to be no surprise. Having somebody buck ass naked in the middle of a forest, all weirdly hunched over in some abandoned building over and over and over again with their legs spread wide open, that's not art.
I mean, well, that's a little weird.
Yeah, but even these models that will say things like, oh, I'm doing a lingerie shoot, but you're sitting there with a smiley face between your legs for some no-name lingerie brand that you don't even know the name of. That's not art. That's some dude getting weird fat content to put in his computer.
Fat content?
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's true. Am I lying? Am I wrong here?
Oh my God.
I mean, am I wrong here? It's a fact. I mean, that's what I tell a lot of my model friends. And another point to it is, like, I tell them, I'm like, you also have to think, like, you're going to have to show these. Maybe you don't even have to, but you might show these pictures to somebody one day. Or they might just come out one day.
Yeah, they might see them.
Like, ask people like Stormy Daniels. Prime example.
Yeah,
Her stuff just came out the woodwork. She's been able to prosper from it since. Kind of embraced it, but wasn't the case initially. I've had teachers as friends who some of their pictures from college have came out and they lost their jobs, can't work with kids anymore. And, people need to keep that in mind. And I remember I had a podcast and I had talked about treating your models like your mom. Still up there. I think I named it Treat Your Models Like Your Mama, something like that. I don't remember the exact name. It's been a while since I recorded it. But the premise of it was that you have to realize that every woman and or man you're shooting with, but women very importantly since we're on that topic, they're somebody's daughter. They're somebody's possible sister or aunt or cousin. Like, you are very powerful as a photographer. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much power they have in somebody's self-image when they're taking pictures. And your images can destroy somebody. Because if you post a picture that makes them look fat or makes them look ugly, and it goes out into the social world, it's out there. And it has their name on it. And whether you go back and delete it 5 minutes later or not, it's already out there. Some people have seen it and they probably never wanted to see it that way. And I think that all kind of ties into doing specific kinds of photo shoots. I've seen many, many photographers that do very great bikini and boudoir and implied nude content. So there is an actual thing for it. But I also think now, whether it be, I don't know really, I've been asking this question a lot lately. My whole Instagram is ass and tits everywhere. It just doesn't stop.
Like your feed?
Everywhere. Can't avoid it. It's everywhere. And that, to me, it's not a coincidence at this point, right? When you're seeing it all over the place, not from one person, not from two people, but just everywhere, there's a problem. And it's not being created from the models, because I would at least hope the models are being paid, right? They're models. They're doing what the photographer is asking for that shoot normally. So I blame the photographers. It's the photographer's fault that this culture is being created, that girls think they have to do this to get paid. And, you know, I've had people combat this argument saying things, you know, well, it can be empowering and it can make women feel good to do that. I'm like, that's probably true. I agree. But not the kind of content that I've been talking about. You know, if you're doing something where, you know, I understand how women want to buy lingerie for themselves usually. It's not usually for anybody else. It's usually for them. Because they want to feel good when they wake up. They want to look in the mirror. They want to feel good. I got that. I've seen plenty of documentaries and movies, and I've talked to plenty of women about it. I understand that. But when you're a photographer and now you're taking it from a sensual, personal, sexy standpoint and making it kind of like eye candy-ish, borderline looking like porn at a lot of times for most of these shoots I see, for no justifiable reason, since you're not submitting these photos. They're not going to be famous for these photos, and you maybe paid them a couple $100, hopefully, because I've heard of stories where they haven't. That's not art to me, and it doesn't work for anyone at that point besides the photographer, which in my opinion is just wrong. So that's a whole long-winded rant version.
It's okay.
Soapbox signature Marcus of that. So.
Okay, next question. What are you most afraid of?
Death. Quick and easy.
Why?
I'm terrified of death. I love life. I know it sounds hella cliche, but death scares the hell out of me. Always has.
Is it because we don't know like what happens on the other side, or is it because you just don't want to stop?
I just don't want to stop.
Okay.
I honestly just love life. I love everything about it. So it's kind of one of those things that just stays in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
You know,
like it's gonna happen.
It's going to. I mean, it's a fact. It's going to happen, and I don't know when it's going to happen. So it's like, am I doing enough that day? Am I talking to the right people that day? Should I have called somebody and told them I love them that day? Like, these are the kind of thoughts that go through my head daily. You know, which is why I just have put an emphasis on the people close to me to make sure that, like, I at least do my best to let the people know that I respect them. You know, whether it be my Instagram supporters, you know, I talk to them very frequently in most of my posts, or even my parents or my friends. I try to tell them as frequently as I can how much I appreciate their time and appreciate them putting energy into me. Because I might not get another chance. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I had a friend of mine who came to work one day, and the next day I found out he died in a car accident. And it was somebody who never had drank in his entire life, so he wasn't drunk, and no one to this day knows really what happened. It's very weird. You know, and that opens your eyes. It opens your eyes, and it really makes it worse for somebody who was scared to death.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's number one is death. I just don't like it. Don't like the thought of it. I try to not think about it as most I can and just enjoy every day that I can. I think it's why I've worked so hard. It's why I push myself to limits that people think is unhealthy at times.
Same.
It's why I just do what I do. It's why I think I grew up so fast. Is I just think it's always kind of been in the back of my brain. Like, dude, you need to get to where you need to go so you can enjoy this. And you're sitting there wasting time. So, I mean, failure, I wouldn't say I'm scared of failure. I think I get more angry at failure. I know I shouldn't, because as I said, it is healthy. Like, I've learned this. But I'm just hard on myself. I'm just a hard person on myself. So when I get into a situation that I'm not sure about, it doesn't really scare me or really make me super angry. It just makes me feel uneasy and anxious. Like, I like to at least have somewhat of a knowing of what's going on. Definitely not a go with the flow type person. But definitely not a fear. So
Okay.
death is number one there.
If you were a facial expression, what would it be?
Ooh. That's a good one. Facial expression, what would I be? I would probably say blank. Like a blank facial expression. And
Like just like the line mouth?
just like, like an emoji. Are we talking like
Yeah,
a natural emotion here?
It could be natural emotion, but I'm trying to, for people who don't know what a blank face, unless you want to do the blank face and then they'll see your face. Just, okay.
Yeah.
So literally.
Just like a standard blank face.
The
And I think
line.
the reason for that is I do talk a lot, as you've seen. people say, your soapbox is way too big. Marcus, get the hell off of it. I'm tired of listening to you talk. So for most, hearing that response is probably going to be like, that doesn't even make any sense. But the reasoning I picked that one is I'm an overthinker. Always have. And it's probably my number one thing that leads to a lot of my thoughts and the things that I say. And that requires no words. It's one of the places that I know personally affects me a lot is my own headspace. I mean, I've had to apologize to people for being in my own headspace. It's a battle that's every single day, all day long, that never ends. I tell people, like, you can't tell me certain things without like explanation, because then I'm going to formulate 17,000 scenarios in my brain within the next 60 seconds that's going to need some sort of clarification.
Yeah.
And that's why I picked the blank one, because I just spend a lot of time in my own thoughts. Music is a big help for me.
What's your favorite song right now?
Ooh, favorite song right now. See, for me, I don't really have a favorite song. Like, specifically, I don't have like one song I listen to. Because of this roller coaster of thoughts, my playlists just jump all over the place all the time. They go from chill and no words to hard rock, death metal, to dubstep, to trance, to whatever it may be. But anything at that point in time that has a message that I'm trying to speak of will be one that I'll listen to. Like, I know, like, if I'm pissed, you'll probably hear more things like Slipknot or Mudvayne or System of a Down or like those things, Disturbed. Like, these are the things that will be in my playlist because I'm upset.
Yeah.
I mean, my music choice changes depending on how I feel. And if there's no music, then I'm in a really bad space.
I mean, yeah.
So
sure.
I mean, music is powerful. So I don't have a favorite song specifically, but a favorite genre of music, I can say, would be EDM. Wasn't always that way. That actually came from an ex-girlfriend whose dad hated hip-hop and rap. So I stopped listening to it.
Weird.
I started, weird. But stopped listening to it, got really into EDM, and just never looked back. Something about it. I also like abstract art, and I guess for me, EDM music is kind of like abstract sound.
Yeah.
Can't really explain into words why I like it. It's
like,
just one of those
this?
things. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like either you get it or you don't get it.
Right.
And specifically because
I usually don't.
Usually don't.
But you like it?
Yeah, just
hang it in your house.
Just feel it. It's just there.
Okay.
So,
makes sense. What is the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life?
Ooh. Craziest thing I've ever seen. Ever. I'd probably say that the craziest thing I've seen in my lifetime would be seeing my dad in a hospital bed. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Knowing how strong he was growing up, and just he was that stern guy that people were pretty much scared of. I mean, my friends wouldn't even want to talk to him on the phone. They'd hang away from my mom to pick up the phone to call me as a kid. And then to see him just laying there helpless, it was just crazy. It was surreal to me.
Did something happen to him, or was he sick?
Smoking.
Oh, shit.
Yep, cigarettes. Cigarettes got him. I mean, has COPD. So it's a condition that will not get better. But yeah, I mean, seeing that, it's just crazy. It's just one of those things that you can't take that image back. I mean, just knowing what he was to what he is now, and I think a lot of the moments after that are just seeing him in just such a weak spot. I mean, seeing somebody that was so strong and so tough be in such a weak spot in a point where they can't even help themselves. Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Everything else, seeing people hurt other people, to me, that's not even crazy. That's just what society's become. So I don't even classify that as crazy. But seeing somebody who you remember as being like one of the toughest people you remember in a helpless state, I mean, that's just crazy. It's just wild to me. So definitely number one there.
Okay. What's the most challenging thing you've been through?
Oh, Man, I don't even know if I could pick one. I'd say most challenging would have to be my time in college.
You're not the first person that has said that, which is funny.
Yeah, but mine has nothing to do with actual college. It has to do with who I was living with. I mean, my old roommate in our situation, I always start before I talk about this by saying that I respect what he did for me when I first moved in there, because I always want the record to show that, because I know he doesn't think that I do. And I understand that people grow apart, but the stuff that happened to get to that point, it was a roller coaster. I mean, having the kinds of questions that people would ask me about him that I had to answer truthfully or kind of bent truthfully to protect him in things that were happening, and the heat that I used to get being guilty by association for something somebody else heard, or going through this entire family feud between him and his family, and him telling his cousins they shouldn't talk to me, and things of this nature. It was tough. It still is tough. I mean, it's something that I don't think I'll fully ever get over. It's one of those situations that, again, is probably one of my biggest gray areas, because I just have questions, and I just really would love answers. I don't think I'll ever get them. I mean, his mom has tried to put us together so we can talk about it, but like when somebody else's family can be around you and say you were in the right, that's a hard situation to have been in, and most people said I could have never been there for that long. They still to this day don't know how I made it through. That was one. And another one was probably one of my last relationships where I had actually lost myself for the first time ever. I was young, had good credit, and like I said, I cared for people. So I put a lot of stuff in my name on credit cards, had a lot of credit card debt that they said they were going to pay back. And when you're in college and you're making $10 an hour, $3,000 of credit card debt and cable bills and phone bills hanging over your head is not a good spot to be in when you're not the one using them. And I just remember when me and her broke up, I remember driving home, and she lived all the way down in Fredericksburg, so it was far away. And then I remember opening the door, dropping to my knees, and just busting out into tears, uncontrollably. Don't even know why. But it's to this day, I still don't know exactly what triggered it to happen. But I do know that mentally, that was the hardest point of my entire life. Is the fact that I remember looking up at the ceiling and saying, I don't know who I am anymore. How did I get to this point? And that's terrible. Like, I wouldn't wish that feeling on anybody, because it's hard to come back from that. I mean, luckily enough, I had my parents, and I had my college roommate. He helped bring me back from that. But yeah, that's mentally the hardest point of my entire life. Helped mold me who I am today, but it was not easy to get back there. I had a lot of help, so it wasn't just me. Yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Last question.
All right, here we
Give
go.
everyone the same scenario. So all the power goes out, but the computer screens, the phones, and the TVs, they're still on. And it's PSA, public service announcement, and then it's your face. So everyone in the world can see your face. So what are you gonna say?
Wow, never heard this one before. Ooh, gotta think about this one. Everybody in the world, at one point in time, see, this one's hard, because what I would want to say, I don't think would have the right, it wouldn't be received. So then I always think, and I wonder, would it even be worth to say it? And that's kind of sad in itself. But I think that what I would say would be short. It wouldn't be long-winded, because people don't have the attention span for it, especially if they're on their phone. I think it would simply be, start treating people better. Start treating people better. And it's not like you have to be friends with everybody, but you can start one day at a time treating somebody a little bit better, and it will grow. you don't have to try to fix the world's problems, because we can't. There's too many people. I'm one person. But I know that if I can do a little bit of good and it rubs off on somebody else, maybe they'll want to do a little bit of good too. And it'll be the start of something great. Prime example is a friend of mine posted on his Instagram, just people that inspired him. Passed it forward. Didn't have to. But it just starts that wheel of getting to a better place. And it starts with treating people better and forgiving people for mistakes. We're all human. People make mistakes. You gotta forgive people, and you gotta move on, and that's it. I wouldn't get too far into it. I wouldn't try to go into detail. It would just be sweet and to the point. Treat people better and start forgiving people, and let's try to move forward from any negativity that we had from this point forward.
Sweet.
That'd be it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What did you draw, if anything?
I put lazy, woman, dad, and weird squiggly.
Can you sign it?
Sure. I told you I was
lazy woman, dad, squiggly.
It kind of went with what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then I got
so
more into
like,
the conversation. I was like thinking, and I was like, damn, I gotta talk, I gotta make sure I'm looking at that thing. I was like, that's just too much. But I will give you my John Hancock right there.
Sweet.
And even give you half a page back.
Well,
I'll put a line if you want. Here you go. Here, fine. We'll fill the page.
there you go.
There we go. Page is
There you
full.
go.
There we go. So, my name is Marcus, and this was In the Flesh. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And hopefully, I didn't piss you off too bad.